Hi there, this is Random Chat and I'm Darren. Today's video is going to be about the British Police Force and what people think of them, or should I say what I think of them. We've all seen on the news and on YouTube how the police are very heavy-handed when it comes to white protesters, demonstrating against what's going on in the country, going out with riot shields, batons and everything else, arresting anyone for anything they can arrest them for, such as calling a police horse gay and shouting at a police dog. And it's clear that the police would charge anyone that's white with anything so ludicrous if they can get away with it. But we've also seen them when it's been Pakistani Muslim protesters in Birmingham doing nothing apart from being chased out of the area by all the Pakistani residents. And this is not just me saying this, you can see this online yourself, how the police cars are being literally chased out of the area as Pakistani people throw things at the cars and kick the cars as they go by. No police presence there in riot shields and batons, and no arrest was made. It shows that the police are either running under a two-tier system in which they only target white people, or they're just scared. And no, I don't condone the violence towards the police, far from it. Protesting using violence is not an answer, but I do agree that some of the police do deserve the grief they get, because some of them are just nasty little bully boys, and that's why they joined the police force. I guess some of the police, when at school, were just the school bully and targeted anyone they could. Always got called into the headmaster's office for being a nasty little bully, and when they were asked what sort of job they would like, well, what job could they do to become a bully? Join the police force. Then they're protected with a uniform and a badge. Then they can go out and legally bully people and get away with it. So yes, there are quite a few, how can I put it, assholes within the police force. I will admit that. But there are also some genuine, honest, good police. They cannot all be tarred with the same brush. Many of these police are probably frustrated, as you are, with what's going on, with all the reports we keep seeing of stabbings on our streets all the time. They just have to do their job, and we have to respect that. So throwing bricks at them makes their job even worse. Why do you think so many police are now leaving the police force? Simply because they're not doing the job that they want to do, because they're not allowed. Half the time they are dictated to what they can do by upper management. You know the ones that sit on their asses up in the offices, who don't get their hands dirty, who think they're doing the right thing by the British public. So these protesters going out throwing bricks at the police and anything else they can get their hands on, they are slightly out of order. Yes, I understand people are frustrated, but don't take it out on the police, even though some of them are complete and utter dickheads. And I know saying they're a bunch of dickheads may be a bit harsh. When you watch some of the stuff regarding the police, well, I'm being quite polite by what I'm saying. I watched one video of a guy who was harassed. He had his drone controller in his hand walking along, viewing the footage. He got stopped by a police officer and interrogated on what he was doing and why he was flying his drone. The bloke said he wasn't flying it, he was just viewing footage on his hand controller. Basically, his copper called him a liar. Got to the stage where he was demanding his name and everything else, and the person in his rights was saying, I don't need to give you my name. I haven't done anything wrong. I've committed no crime. Eventually, the police officer arrested him, placed him in handcuffs, and then shortly after, found his drone in his bag, on his back. So how could he be flying a drone when it was already packed away in his bag? So this copper literally hassled him, called him a liar to his face, basically, and didn't even apologize to him, and then said he was going to de-arrest him, but caution him about flying a drone in a restricted area, despite the fact that this guy, who was a licensed drone operator, pointed out it wasn't a restricted area. But this copper was so adamant that he was in the right, despite the fact that he was clearly in the wrong. Did he apologize? No. And police wonder why they get so much of abuse from the general public. Another one I watched was a guy on a bicycle, standing on the footpath with his bike, filming his friend who was in a competition running. He was waiting for him to come by so he could take photographs or film him, whatever it was. One police officer harassed him for being on the footpath with his bike and telling him to move. He was in the wrong place. The guy was polite and tried explaining to him he was trying to take a video footage of his friend who's entered the race. This police officer just bullied him in moving, so he moved eventually to where the police officer turned and told him to. A second police officer came along and then harassed him even more for blocking the footpath with his bicycle, despite the fact that the previous police officer turned and told him to go there. And it's idiots like this that give the police a bad name. They're just nasty little bully boys. They are just a bunch of fascists who feel that they can put a uniform on and push people around and control people and dominate people. And because they're wearing the police uniform, they're protected. And it's these police officers that give the bad name for the good ones, the ones who are doing their job. Now, regards to doing their job, some people are saying that they're not doing their job, as in what they're meant to be doing, protecting the public. You've also got to realise that half the police are very worried and concerned about doing their job and end up being suspended, going to court, being accused of stuff that they haven't done apart from doing their job. Take not too long ago, I've mentioned in the past past about the Manchester airport attack. We have all seen the truthful footage within that video in which one Pakistani guy seriously punches a policewoman so hard in the face he breaks her nose, targeting a second policewoman, repeatedly punching her until she was knocked to the ground, and then turned and attacked the male police officer who was detaining his brother. Now, no charges was pressed against this Pakistani Muslim for the very violent attack. No charges as of yet has been announced against this Pakistani guy. He hasn't gone to court, nor has he gone to prison. He's basically walking the streets free of charge after a serious violent assault. Now, the police officer in question pushed the guy's head down with his foot. He didn't stamp on his head. You can see that clearly in the footage. He just pushed his head down. And then he tapped him with his foot. Didn't kick him in the head, as this Pakistani guy is stating, because there was no damage to this guy's face. Now, straight away, that police officer was suspended from duties and placed under investigation. And the investigation is to see if it was a racially motivated attack on the Pakistani Muslim. So what about the attack on the police officer? Surely that was more serious than anything than what the police officer did. The police officer got control of the situation, which was a very violent, aggressive situation. But now he's under investigation. He might even lose his job. He will have it on record that he was sacked for being possibly a racist. So now you can clearly understand why some of the police are not doing their job properly. They're too worried about the consequences if they do. There are people higher up within the police force who are willing to sacrifice their officers to keep people happy, so they don't go out and protest and cause mayhem and riots, demanding justice for a crime that somebody else has committed, and all they were doing is doing their job. So we can't blame the police for all their negligence. Yes, there are some who are completely and utterly just morons that shouldn't even be in the police force, who don't really give a damn about putting an innocent elderly person in prison for writing something maybe classified as offensive on Facebook, but then turning a blind eye to, say, an Islamic person carrying a bloody great big knife on them. I know some of you might think, yes, but the police do not turn a blind eye when it comes to knife crimes or knife offences, but they do. It has been reported that police do not do a stop and search on black people now if they believe there is a possible chance of an offence of carrying a knife or some other weapon, simply because of the hassle the police get for being classified as racist and saying it's racially motivated why they have done a stop and search on them. And we seem to all point the finger at the police and think they're the ones who are to blame for what's going on our streets. It's the fact that people higher up in the police force, in the office, who want to keep a certain minority happy. So how can they do that? Simply don't arrest them. The only problem is by doing that, all it says is you have a free pass to do whatever you want, break whatever laws you want to break, because you're untouchable. That is totally wrong. The law is the law. You break the law, you face the consequences. You go to court, and if you have to go to prison, well, so be it. If you can't do the time, don't do the crime, is the saying. But in this country these days, it's only if you're white you shouldn't do the crime. So when people are going out, throwing bricks, throwing everything they possibly can get their hands on at the police, maybe they need to stop and think. Think how it affects those police officers. The majority of those police officers are probably just as frustrated as you are, just as angry, and they also want justice. But the problem is they have to follow the rules. They have to follow what they're told to do. They are only following orders. You've also got to respect the fact that since Labour has taken over and that we have Keir Starmer as the Prime Minister of this country, things have got even worse for the police, and the two-tier system within the police force has now basically got to such a level that it's basically a joke. You can clearly see there's a two-tier system there. And I know the police and the legal system will say there is no such thing as a two-tier system, that people do not get away with doing things because of the colour of their skin. In all honesty, yes, they do. I've seen this myself in the past, many, many years ago. The whole element of people abusing the system because of the colour of their skin isn't something new. It's been in this country for a very long time. And the best example I can give you was many, many years ago. I used to live in a little village, and the village had two factories there. and the factory owners only ever employed people within the village. One of the factories I worked in had 3 people go for a job interview, 2 from the village itself and 1 from a neighbouring town, Trowbridge, about 5 miles from the village I lived in. 2 white and 1 black. Now the 2 white guys got the job simply because they lived in the village, but the black guy who lived in Trowbridge, which was a neighbouring town 5 miles away from the village itself, didn't get the job. So he decided to kick up a hell of a fuss because obviously the person doing the interview was racist. So they decided to give him a job. Now, the person in question, I knew the family at the time. I went to school with one of them, and they did have a bad reputation. And I mean a very bad reputation. And it was the father of the family that wanted the job. So the factory gave him one. He turned up late every single day and went home early every single day. He never did his job. He was always skiving off, hiding in one of the outbuildings that the company had at the time. Eventually, after a few weeks, he decided to leave. He didn't want the job. I found out from one of his family members that he only literally took the job just to prove a point. So basically this guy didn't want a job there. He just used the colour of his skin to make sure he could control what people did and didn't do. So the whole element within this country of people abusing the system because of their colour is nothing new. It's always been a problem here. The only problem is what we are noticing is the police seems to be favouring non-white people, and it's simply because they have no choice really. They are fighting a battle they can't win. They either do their job and arrest people no matter what the colour of their skin is and end up being classified as racist, fascist when they do arrest someone who's black, and then there is a massive uproar within that community because they will say they have been victimised because of the colour of the skin, or they do nothing, turn a blind eye to their criminal acts and then get abuse from the white people for not doing their job. So the police can't win. So what we must all remember, when you see all this violence towards the police on the television, just ask yourself, do they really deserve what they're getting? Some maybe, yes, but not all. Some of them are just doing a job. Same as you and I. When we go to work, we're just doing our job. And that is all they're doing. So if there's anyone watching this, thinking about going out on a protest, on a demonstration, don't be part of the violence towards the police. Don't be part of the violence towards anyone. Violence is not going to achieve your goal at getting heard. It's only going to get you locked up. It's only going to get you classified as a racist thug by our lovely Prime Minister, Keir Starmer. So stop the violence towards the police. Think first. Think how they feel. You've got to remember, they're people as well. They're not machines. They're not robots. They might look like they've shut off from all the crap that's going on around us. They're probably feeling the same as you and I are. So give these guys a break. Yes, you will come across a few of them who are complete and utter tossers, and that's the only way I can describe them. But there are some decent police officers out there. It's just the bad ones that are giving them the bad reputation also. And you've only got to look at the statistics of how many police are resigning these days simply because of what's going on. Because they no longer can do their job, because there is always that fear of being called a racist and being a fascist because you do your job, because of all the grief and hassle they're getting from protesters. So people are leaving the police force because of it. It's too damaging to their mental health and their physical health. And that is my views on what I think about the police. Yes, there are some assholes within the police force, but there are some really good people in there also. And that maybe we need to give them a break and show them a little bit of respect. As I have said, if anyone's going out protesting, demonstrating on what is going on in this country, just think first before you decide to pick a brick up and throw it at some copper, because he might be feeling the same way as you are. I don't mean he wants to throw the brick back at you. So that's all I've got to say on this subject, and I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, you know what to do. Feel free to add some comments, tell me what you think of what I've just said, and a massive thank you to everyone clicking that subscribe button and watching my videos. Your support is so appreciated. So that's it for now. Until the next video, stay safe and goodbye for now.